Our next speaker, as we wind down the program, but certainly not the quality, is Mr. Craig Uden. Actually, when Craig is deeply involved with NCBA, when he was contacted to speak, that was prior to knowing about the conflict. So he's, I don't know, it's kind of a short string here, really, but really appreciate Craig taking the time out of his busy schedule down there, because Craig is the chair of the NCBA Policy Division, has some really great responsibilities there. Craig is a feedlot partner in Dar Feedlot at Dar, Nebraska. I would say a very progressive feeding organization that I believe many of you are familiar with. He's a graduate of the University of Nebraska. He's a former president of the Nebraska Beef Council, has been involved deeply with the cattle industry, not only at the NCBA national level, but as a Nebraska as well. So with that, I think, Craig, we're looking for what you have to say.
Is this on?
Okay. Yes, you're on. So.
Okay, I'm going to head up here. Somewhere along the line, I saw that I was classified as a doctor. I thought, boy, oh boy. I do have a lot of hard knocks, a school of hard knocks, but yeah, it's kind of been a busy day. One reason I'm in here today, I think information is critical. That's why I've always been involved in the industry, and I think that's what I hope to present today and give you some of the ideas of what I think we ought to be doing as far as tackling this BRD issue. Due to new and more regulations on daily operations, you, the practicing vets, have an opportunity to have a better producer-vet relationship. I think that's really key. It's something I've heard for so many years that, I really don't use a veterinarian, or the veterinarian says to me, well, I really don't call on that guy unless he really needs me. I think that's something that has to be worked on immensely, because we're still in the food business, and I think we have to, we're going to be scrutinized more and more in the future about the product we provide. And with that wholesomeness, we also have to have health. I'm only here to give you opinions and observations I've seen in 30 years. I am the former manager and now just a partner and work in cattle procurement, marketing, and PR. And I work back and forth with a lot of our clientele. Dar Feedlot is an operation that started in the early 80s. It started at 2,500 head. We'll run about 45,000 at a crack right now, push through 100,000 head a year. And of that, we'll wean somewhere between, on a real slow year, which hasn't been the last 3 or 4 because of the drought, we pull a lot of calves in. We will wean between our feed yard and our outside facilities 20 to 30,000 calves a year. And I don't think, or I want to tell you that I don't think BRD doesn't have to be an issue. We've tried to make it a non-issue. I can find enough cattle in that 100,000 that are managed right, and that's what I hope for you to do, is take this home to your clientele or develop a relationship with your clientele to move this industry forward. I heard something today I really scares me. And times are awful good in the industry, and I think people take that for granted, and they say, well, I don't have to. Everything's so good, I don't need to. What do they call it? They call it, I can't remember right now, but you're just pulling the calves off and shipping them direct off the cow. I don't need to give a shot. Everything's really good. And that's not the mindset we have to work on if we're going to be in the food industry. Benchmark data will indicate that all death loss has increased, and it's doubled since 2009. An example of that is if a feed yard was running 1%, now it runs 2%. That's really unacceptable in 2014. I mean, we have better products, more capabilities to try to head some of this off, but yet we continue to have issues. And I will say the feeding industry creates some of that. Our feedlot is no different. We went from 0.5% in 2009 to 1% in 2014. 1/5 of 1% or 1% is a loss from BRD. Not very much. When you look at the national average and they say it's 1 point, our mortalities was 1.4, now it's 1.7. So we have other issues. It shouldn't be an issue or a big issue today, and in the future it can't afford to be an issue. Again, I want to stress the image of our product. Right now we're enjoying some of the best demand for our product we can have, and we're sitting there treating sick cattle like we are today and having the mortality that we're still having today. That's just really not acceptable. Nor long term, it's not going to keep us as the top protein. We've seen cattle and calves rise from $700 to over $1,200 this year, and when we see the mortality of 1.4 to 1.7, the cost of mortality per head on a pen of finished cattle equals $21 today, whereas $10. That's a lot of money. And now I'm going to get kind of where I want to go, hashing around that it shouldn't be an issue. It seems to me that everybody's concentrated to the feedlot level to handle the BRD issue. I hear it from sales reps, I hear it from veterinarians, it all gets pushed to the feedlot. And I don't think that's the right approach. I think it needs to start at the cow-calf. Feedlot is the reactive mode. We need to be in the proactive mode. If I can get you proactive, that's what I want to. I want to do with what I do with my calves and my customers' calves. We sell a concept. It's plain and simple. And if I can have you do something, is to go out and be proactive. Don't let the customer come to you. You go out to him. I want to teach and not respond. I think that's something that we need to concentrate on. Nothing replaces good cow management, and I mean nothing. Nutrition of the things that we're promoting and pushing with our clientele and cattle that we buy. Nutrition of the cow, pre and post calving. Available and viable water. Huge issue. Just went through the drought. We traced cattle back to where they had inadequate water or low water ponds that had high levels of iron or metals, heavy metals. We fought the issue all the way through. Proper micro and macronutrients. I've been a big believer in mineral programs and balancing that cow. It's a tool. It's not a savior. There's no silver bullet is what I'm going to tell you. It's tools. We've got to do a better job of managing. It really should not be an issue on castration and dehorning calves. They should be done as quick as possible. And that should not be an issue when we go into weaning or stress into the feedlot. Low stress handling of cattle. One thing in the genetic side of things that I've seen in the last 5 years is a tremendous decrease in Rammy cattle. Docility has been brought into the issue, which is going to do nothing more than help these calves on a low stress handling issue. Vaccination and deworming. When was it given? How was it given? Was it even given? Those are some of the questions I always have. Probably the key, when I'm in this time of year, there's a lot of video sales. There's a lot of calves trading. First thing I want to see is not the back 34, not the back 45. I want to know how that calf was handled in the spring prior to turnout. I know we got guys in here that represent small operators and guys that represent big ones. But one of the most key things that we've seen, or I've seen in my 30 years, is when we got people to vaccinate those calves in the spring before turnout at branding in Nebraska, or turnout if they don't brand. Why is that key? Years ago, we did studies with Clay Center, and we have some awful good operators in our realm. We have a lot of retained ownership cattle. We took several sets of cattle that were managed from gate to plate. We took those cattle. We watched those cattle all the way through. Every animal was identified for treating, a treatment from birth to slaughter. We would see anywhere from 10 to maybe 12% on average that was doctored through their outfit and our outfit. Yet we got to where we're scoring lung lesions in the packing plant, we'd see 35 to 40. So we were getting a lot of summer pneumonias on these calves that self-heal back on the cow. Then we wonder why they die. My God, we didn't have a problem at home. Now you're losing them in the yard. That's another stressor. BRD loves, it loves that stress. And anytime we don't have that animal functioning properly, we're going to have problems down the way. It ain't going to change. You're going to send these calves into big feed yards. Part of our issue that I said we help create is we push these cattle harder. Thank you, $8 corn. So we crank these cattle out. They're genetically engineered to gain faster and quicker. They're going to be more challenged. They have to be better prepared before they come in the yard. And yes, for a while, but not too long with what calves are costing, you'll find the people that will still buy these high-risk calves. But as people have to go out and secure financing for these calves, it ain't going to last real long. There's going to be a big discrepancy on price. Again, we got to sell it the cow-calf. And forget the premium that I'm going to pay them. I am paying a premium. I'm paying $15, $100 more right now for things that are done right. Were they preconditioned or were they vaccinated this spring? How is their trace mineral? Are they vac 34 in the fall and boosted? These are the things I'm looking for. That's what I'm going to pay for. But that's not how to sell it to the cow-calf guy. In my cow herd, we run 1,500 cows. And I run them clear across the state of Nebraska. And we will run probably about 2.5–3% open on a 45 to 60 day breed up. But what we've seen with what we practice what we're preaching in our operation, we'll see heavier calves that are healthier and a lot easier to wean. Cows that breed up closer. This is huge for the cow-calf guy. I mean, we don't sell that, but they breed up a lot tighter. We'll see 85% the first cycle on a lot of these cattle, if you manage the cow. Calves that go on to perform better in the feedlot than the packing plant, which leads to a better quality product and something we cannot take our eye off the ball because we still have to have that favorable consumer perception. I sit on the Beef Quality Audit Committee a few years ago. Most all the strides in the beef industry to gain quality has been done on the feedlot level. About everything's been done that can be done there. It's time to move it to the cow-calf sector. We have to have better cattle brought to us so that we can move these cattle forward. We learned a lot in the drought. As I said earlier, lack of water and lack of groceries. We thought we had great weigh-ups. Cattle came in really good condition, underperformed. We bought the calves weighing 6, they weighed 5. Boy, we're going to make a lot of money. Never had so much death, loss, and headache in our life. It is so important to talk on the nutrition. And you guys will be charged with that in the future as we go into some of these regs that are coming out where you're going to have to be the one that's going to have to, the feed additive rule. So you can develop that clientele relationship, and you have the greatest opportunity you've had to move this thing forward. We should have no issues today. We just got rid of 1.5, 2 million head in the last 3-4 years. We should have got rid of all the poor ones. Why do we still have an issue here? I will tell you, we use metaphylactics at times. We still evaluate the cattle, and we do it for long hauls and bad trucking job. One thing that needs to be addressed, pay attention to how these cattle are getting transported. I mean, that's one of the biggest failures and the biggest fights between the cow-calf and the feeder, or how cattle didn't perform, is a bad, piss-poor trucking job. And that needs to be addressed, or followed up and handled appropriately. Terrible weather, or when we have no records. When the cattle come into our facility, we try to rest the cattle, and we'll vaccinate those cattle, and somewhere around 48 hours, preferably. That's a little more challenging, but the more rest we can give them, particularly if we know the history and we've got records with them, we'll leave them cattle set and get caught back up. We're going to give them a 4-way with Pastorella. We're going to 7-way mothless. We're going to ID them cattle. And that's probably what sets us apart. I've talked to a lot of people. We ID these cattle 4 different ways if possible. They have a ranch tag. They come in with a ranch tag, get a feedlot tag with the individual ID, and they get an EID tag. So we'll trace them back. We'll come back and implant 30 days and rebooster if we need to. But if we have a good health protocol that came with the cattle, sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. Because in the feedlot system, they will get challenged. But we have very little issue with that. Our motto is, we prefer to vaccinate and not treat. Our processing regime is higher than average, but so is our performance. Nobody likes to pay the bill, but when they get the check back for the pounds and the quality grade and the acceptance of the product, it's called value. And that's what we got to do, is sell value. I've heard way too much about low-cost producer. And I don't mind being a low-cost producer, but I'd rather be a high-value producer. You know, there's trade-offs, but whatever you spend, let's get more money back on that. And that's kind of how we've perceived it. Because we're not a cheap feed yard as far as the processing or the vaccination. But I'll tell you, very many that keep beating with us on death loss and performance, both in the yard and at the packing plant. It's nice to have 4 packers that beg you for cattle. And if they're not, maybe the feed yard's not doing what they need to. Like I said, we track the cattle through ID. Ranch, feedlot, electronic. If there's a sick tag, we still put a sick tag in. You say, why do you put a sick tag in? We put a sick tag in because it's a little clip tag. We know that animal's been treated, so we can monitor that calf a little closer than trying to read the EID off the horse. Sale barn, we lot those cattle, and we track them from day one all the way through the packer, so we get the carcass data back. And we sit down with clients and of all kinds and go through different data. And we can trace back health, gain, conversion, everything on individuals. We can go back different sire groups. We can go back different cow years. We see lots of differences out there. Sale barn will lot an ID by load. And if we have an issue, we'll go back that day and we'll find outliers. In our country, we can go back with a brand, a tag, a description. And we will go back and we will track those guys down and find out what they've given those cattle. Video, we work them by a group or a lot. And ranch, we use the ranch tag as the major ID. Ranch calves, we want all the info if we can get it. We want to know the vaccination, we want to know the health records, I want to know previous incidents. I don't think we look at previous. We deal in the now. We need to deal in the future and the past a little more. We need to broaden that out. What do I mean by that? What kind of year do they have calving? What was their grass condition? Did they go through a scour issue? How many treated? Previous history. Was it better or worse? Because I'm telling you, when that calf's born, that first 45 days, how he gets along is how my success or failure is going to be on the end. And here again, we need to be proactive instead of treating the issue. We need to be educating on the front side. If we go to the sale barn, we want to vac 34 or wean 45 days if possible. If we don't, and I have customers all kinds, and sometimes they'll send me the issues, but we deal with them one-on-one. But we just don't have a lot of issues. I will tell you, out of the 1/5 to 1% of death loss, over half of it comes out of the sale barn. Okay. We rate and rank the cattle. Health being number 1, performance second, death loss third. We won't just kick them out for death loss if going back to these guys, if they had an issue at calving or in the spring, we'll work with them to correct that issue, and we'll maybe come back and buy those cattle. We score them from A to F. A to B, we will buy the cattle back. C to F, we don't want them. So if you have clients, and I watch guys that foolishly sit there and say, well, somebody always wants my cattle, and they've ran through all the gamuts. They don't have many people left to sell. Feedlots are going to be more demanding, and we got to have the cattle better prepared. We've made our customers a lot of money over the years. The biggest attribute that our customers give, the biggest acclimate they give us, is not the money they made in feeding the cattle. It's what we educated them back. Now, I'm a feedlot, I'm going to do it. A lot of feedlots won't. That's why I'm asking you, the veterinarian community, that work with these guys, to go educate these guys. Any bad issues out there today are going to get... We live in such a fast-paced society that the information gets out there so quick to people that those folks... Somewhere you don't want to be you don't want to be on the World Wide Web defending a situation that could have been prevented. What we call it a cattle supply management system. We're going to keep doing it. The industry will benefit greatly if we help sell it. That's what I'm asking and pleading for you guys to do. I am interested. I was reading some of the. I couldn't be here because I had other duties, but I was interested in the genetic gene markers, potential to identify the animals to the disease, and I was also encouraged by new drugs and vaccines and stuff like that. But there's no silver bullet to replace management, and the new technology and vaccines will fail miserably if we do not incorporate good management. And it's really simple, folks. It's called animal husbandry. And with that, I'm about on my time, and I will jump out and let Mr. Tom Field come up.